So we're going to just give you a few minutes here before we break for lunch to ask anything you want of any of us.
So the question I have and that some of us were talking about is, I feel like these wonderful activities for parents and the active things that you guys come up with for kids and the meditative things, those things don't come naturally to me. And I don't know where to look for them, and I would love some resources to be shared just that we could start making those part of our repertoire.
You are going to get a series of resources. Pat is curating them and putting them together. Pat, I don't know how you're going to get them to people, but email or on the website.
Well, we'll put it with all of the rest. Why don't I take one of those?
So one thing I would say, Pat is just doing heroic work to do what I would say collecting and cataloging static resources, where you can go get them. Pat will also at the end of this talk about things that are emerging called sharing circles. There's numerous theme-based sharing circles kind of out there right now. Groups of anywhere from 80 congregations on the same themes to 40 to 4. And so those will also be, so when you see Pat list sharing circles, all of them have systems for people to, whether it's Facebook or getting together online, they have ways to also not just statically share, but actively share as a network. Does that help a little?
I'll add to that also. There is a laboratory on Facebook, the Full Faith Laboratory, where you can join and share ideas and ask for ideas. And I'm aware of at least a couple of different clusters. Groups of religious educators have come together and done hackathons, where they just spend like a half day together and co-create a bunch of worship elements or stories or a bunch of activities.
I wanted to ask, in the worship example that we did, there were so many juicy ideas in there, but I have a bum left knee, and then I got to thinking about, ooh, what if there was somebody there, a child in a wheelchair? How would you have modified the request to run repeatedly in place in reflection of the differing abilities that people have, some of which are invisible?
The same way that we would say stand in body or spirit, and for something like that, it can be easily modified for someone in a chair, to be able to move in a chair, or to have people come next to that person, if that's what you mean. I have kids who don't participate, like if you're somebody who's come in and you've had a lousy day, and basically it's to help them hold in the space, and it's part of, if something is active, we also have the option to have chairs present for adults who need to sit. You know what I mean? We're sitting on the floor, but there's always chairs around, so if adults need to sit or if somebody needs to sit, there's adaptation. Did I answer your question?
Well, what I'd like to respectfully point out is that this was a golden opportunity to model how you would do it.
Oh, got it. Sorry. Yeah.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
I'm wondering if, a whole bunch of us just got this message about theme-based worship, and I'm wondering if our ministers are getting a similar message. Because you use the phrase, we are equal collaborators, but my experience is that my minister drives this. So I'm wondering if this message is being rolled out to them in an intentional way as well.
As your director of congregational life and RUA, congregational life is on board with this both in, we are also getting ourselves ramped up. So all of your congregational life staff, all your field staff are just starting, we're at a beginning place as well, but I would say in theory, yes, but practically we're now offering these kind of workshops at UUMA retreats, but more importantly, we're trying to do it in cluster areas where we invite teams together to do it. So it doesn't really get it, we're very aware that that's what we have to do to pull people together, to bring everybody on board. And we could say a lot more about that, but we're aware of the complexities of that.
So, yeah, I presented about 3 weeks ago at the Pacific Central District UUMA retreat, and we'll be presenting at the Mountain Desert District. These are all in the west. But the messaging is clear. That theme-based ministry is excellence in ministry, and pulling up that everything we do is faith formation is happening.
And the one thing, our big theme is, when we, or and particularly, I mean when I do it, but when we all do it, the workshop is moving from theme-based worship to theme-based church.
Yeah, right.
You see, so the whole framing that we give is not just, hey, how can you do it in worship? It's a lot, when we talk to parish ministers especially, we're like, okay, fine, you're thinking about doing this in worship, but the real, the real, what's the word here? The real treasure, the real aim is to move from theme-based worship to theme-based church. That in of itself sends a message about doing it more collaboratively.
Thank you to my colleague for holding up that huge power boulder that has been sitting in the room for the last 2 hours. And I wanted to bring up a second one of our power boulders. That is that these things cost money, particularly when there is kind of a subscription and ownership and a whole lot of staff time. And I think that's another growing edge is it is great to have things that are developed, and then how do we trickle them down to something that could truly work for every church?
I think we just want to all hold that up. But practically I would say that really either become aware of the sharing circles that I mentioned or create your own. Number one, themes allow you to do that. When you have this hackathon, if 8 of you are on the same theme, that allows you to be able to share. That's not a high cost. And all of the sharing circles, there's some simple things like through Facebook things or Zoom meetings that you have once a month. Some folks are meeting on Zoom like a week before a month happens, so you can all sort of plan together, getting ready. So I mean, I don't want to disagree with what you're saying. It's a huge problem, but there are some strategies to do it for lower cost.
I'll piggyback on that as well. Pat, and I don't know who was your partner in developing the theme-based ministry pages theme-based church pages on our UUA website. So there are some free and available open source resources for you. I think this is a particularly saving model for small churches that are resource tight. Because we can look at the Tapestry of Faith curriculum and search it by keyword, so choose your theme and search. There's all these online resources that Pat is curating, so it can be done without a whole lot of.
I'm just going to say that I affirm what you're saying, and I've been accused for not asking for money for my work, and I'm happy to share all my stuff, and I post it on the pages, and so absolutely.
And this is where we do need to really give a lot of credit to UUA staff. We're doing a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. So number one, I hope everyone should get familiar later on with the tagging system that's happened on UUA.org. Pat and some other really wonderful UUA staff have done a lot of work to see like these circles that are all on the same theme, to take what they know is out there and tag all the UUA resources for that. So that's one piece. And the other piece is Pat just did this great thing that she'll have in all the written materials, right? Where, I'll use one example, like the Soul Matters sharing network. There was a bunch of ideas shared on the RE Facebook page, where religious educators just put their ideas on the Facebook page. Well, that was hard to keep track. So what Pat did is she jumped in that Facebook page, pulled all those ideas off, and pulled them into the UUA.org theme-based page to try to make it accessible to even those folks who aren't in the sharing circle. So those are some other ways through which you can have access.
So at first it was a challenge integrating theme-based into RE, but as I wrapped my mind around it, began to kind of get messy with it, experiment learn, experiment fail. I actually found that it took a lot less time once I got the structures in place, and the energy that came from the program fed me, fed the program, fed the families. And so as I look at it in a very utilitarian way, and I know we have to as religious educators, for me, after about a year or two, honestly, it was much easier and less work. And I'm happy to testify to you and tell you my specifics one-on-one later today, if you'd like.
Understanding that a linear approach could take forever, and that doing everything all at once could cause chaos in a congregation that currently is not doing theme-based ministry. And I'm referring now to a solidly mid-sized congregation with a substantial RE program. I'd like to know what your best advice is about how it makes the most sense, perhaps, to engage in this in a way that will not throw the entire system into complete chaos, just enough to make the change happen. Thank you.
I will speak to that. When I talked about being strategic about your structures and where it appears, you really, as the religious educator, have to feel out the organic places where you want to begin. I could not have come into the job, I've got K through 5, not on workshop rotation, I have to make that happen. From there, then I went to, our junior hires aren't worshiping. I'm going to add theme-based worship there. So it's kind of identifying where you feel like in your program it would make the most sense to start. Maybe it's in spirit play. You know what I mean? Like maybe you just have to look at your program and decide, but definitely not everywhere all at once. Like you can't do it. Physically you will collapse probably from all it takes a lot of listening. It's almost like you pilot it here and then you listen to it and then, oh, okay, and I'm stretching it here. So Scott's talking about examples that happen over the course of time. You know, it's like an organic growth process. It's not all at once that all of a sudden this happens. It happens kind of organically in the program. And I feel like part of our job is to really listen to how the needs of the program relate to that theme in particular ways. It may be very different for K through 5 than it is for junior high. You may be looking at some kind of tweeting system for junior high, and then coming of age it may be, like for us, the spiritual plans. You know what I mean? Does that help? Yeah, so be very strategic and pay attention to yourself and your hours. Just saying.
And I'm just 20 seconds on that. Anybody who is serving a smaller congregation, please, grab me. I should not have said I served First Unitarian of Rochester. I served a multi-site of First Unitarian Rochester, which was one of our largest congregations, 1,000, and Canandaigua Unitarian Congregation, which was 60 people. And where this led was both radical and targeted in Canandaigua, to where struggled for years on how to have a children's program on Sunday morning. The short version of this is killed it and just had twice a month family groups on Thursday evenings by using theme-based stuff. So I would love to tell that story to smaller congregations on how that actually enabled them to focus their resources. Even though it was radical, it didn't throw everything into the world.
So I just have a comment that reflects back on the question about whether this information was also being shared with ministers. And Scott, I hope you don't mind my sharing this. But
you'll do it.
But I want everyone to know that Scott and I have been having discussions this past year about the Faith Development Office and the work of congregational life and where our work meet. And one of the first things he said to me is, I'd really love to do an RE-based, theme-based church, theme-based ministry workshop. I'd like to bring this information almost first to the religious educators. Now, I think what we hear is that ministers are sort of getting it at the same time, but you're getting it at the same time as ministers, or even before some ministers are getting it. And Scott really wanted to do that. That was important to him. I didn't really ask him why it was important for him to bring it to RE, but I'm hoping that maybe one of the reasons was because he knows that religious educators are open-minded, innovators, people who are not afraid to live on the fringe, not afraid to try new things, particularly things that we think are going to help our congregants go to places of deeper faith and deeper commitment and deeper community. So thank you, Scott.
I wanted to affirm that by lot of times I can do things in my job that other people can't, including the minister.
Right.
I get to squeeze things in the back door, and some people don't even know about them that they're starting, so I'm amending that.